Hello, neatly dressed uniforms, refined makeup, and sweet smiles. These are the familiar images that come to mind when we think of flight attendants. But once they step out of their jobs, they are just ordinary people, with the full range of human emotions: joy, anger, love, sorrow, and all the sweet, bitter, happy, and painful moments that life brings. Everyone has the right to seek happiness for themselves, but not everyone is fortunate enough to find it. Our story begins on December 8, 2013, a Sunday. In the stillness of night, the Kwai Uyen apartment complex lay in complete silence. The ticking of the clock echoed louder than ever, breaking the eerie calm. Tracy Tran lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her eyes full of exhaustion. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't fall asleep. Her mind was overwhelmed by the details of a phone call she had just received. The caller was the supervisor of her older sister, Mandy Tran, who also worked for an airline. He said they hadn't seen or heard from Mandy Tran for several days and asked if the family knew anything. Tracy Tran was shocked. Thinking back, she realized it had been 4 days since she last saw her sister at home. She had assumed her sister was away on a flight. The supervisor continued, "At 3 p.m. on October 4th, 4 days ago, the company received a call from Mandy Tran. Her voice sounded hoarse as she said she wanted to call in sick. According to company policy, employees need to give at least 2 hours notice when calling in sick, but there was only 1 hour left before Mandy Tran's scheduled shift, which put the company in a difficult position. It's not easy to find a replacement on such short notice. At that time, Mandy Tran was 26 years old and known by her English name, Abby. She was a flight attendant. As you may know, punctuality and attendance are strictly enforced for airline crew members. Any absence or sudden leave can seriously affect their careers. Mandy Tran had always been known as a dedicated and responsible employee. This was the first time she had ever called in sick like that. It was completely out of character. What had really happened to her? After the call from the airline, Tracy Tran became extremely anxious. She tried calling her sister and her sister's boyfriend, but no one picked up. She started to imagine all kinds of possibilities. The more she thought about it, the more worried she became. But she didn't know where to begin. Around 2 a.m., Tracy Tran suddenly remembered that whenever her sister went to work, she always took her suitcase with her, so she began searching the house. Tracy Tran lived with her 2 sisters in the same bedroom. The middle sister was studying abroad in Singapore, so only Tracy Tran and Mandy Tran were home. Each of them had their own bed. While searching, Tracy Tran noticed that her sister's suitcase and handbag were missing from the room. If Mandy Tran had gone to work, she would definitely have taken them with her. But something odd caught her attention. Her sister's bed was neatly made, the blanket slightly puffed up as if something was underneath. When she lifted the blanket, she was horrified to find a flight attendant uniform, a pair of high heels, and a handbag underneath. Mandy Tran had always been a neat and tidy person. She would never put shoes on the bed. This strange discovery made Tracy Tran feel that something was seriously wrong. She couldn't sleep anymore and immediately woke up her parents to talk. The whole family started searching the apartment. Not long after, their father suddenly shouted from the sister's bedroom closet, "I found it! It's here!" Tracy Tran thought he had found the suitcase, but when she ran to the doorway, she was so shocked that she collapsed onto the floor. The closet door was wide open. A pair of pale, stiff legs was sticking out. The entire apartment fell into a terrifying silence. From inside the closet, the faint smell of mothballs mixed with the stench of decay. Their father stood frozen, his eyes blank. He suddenly recalled that for the past few days, there had been a strange smell in the house, but it would go away whenever they opened the windows, so he didn't think much of it. Who would have imagined that it was the smell of death? After regaining her composure, Tracy Tran told her parents not to touch anything to avoid disturbing the crime scene. She immediately called the police. At 2:30 a.m., police and paramedics arrived at the scene. The entrance to the Kwai Uyen apartment complex was sealed off. Mandy Tran's body was found inside the closet in a strange position, feet pointing upward, head facing down. She was fully clothed, and around her neck was a scarf from her flight uniform. She had been dead for several days. Because the closet was filled with clothes and mothballs and it was winter, the body had decomposed slowly. The smell wasn't very strong, which is why the family had unknowingly lived with her corpse for days. An autopsy confirmed she had not been sexually assaulted. There were signs of a struggle on her head and hands, and blood had trickled from her nose. There were 5 wounds on her neck, 2 horizontal scratches, and 3 vertical claw marks. Time of death was estimated to be the afternoon of October 4th, the same day she called in sick. The cause of death was suffocation. The killer had strangled her using both hands and her uniform scarf. After further checking, the family discovered that Mandy Tran's phone and bank card were missing. The SIM card had also been removed, making it impossible to receive missed calls or messages. The last recorded phone call was the one where she called in sick. That day, police played a recording of that phone call for the family. Mandy Tran's father confirmed that it was her voice, but she sounded hesitant and afraid, completely different from her usual confident tone. Tracy Tran also said her sister normally spoke loudly, clearly, and decisively, but the voice in the recording was trembling. Based on the evidence, police concluded that Mandy Tran had been forced to make that call. They then investigated her bank card activity. It turned out there had been no transactions for nearly a week. The fact that the killer took her card but didn't use it raised a lot of suspicion. Mandy Tran's mother said that her daughter had always been well-behaved and thoughtful. Every day after school, Mandy Tran would take her younger sisters to the library to study while waiting for their parents to get off work. She was an excellent student, and even her teachers praised her as the most hardworking in class. Though the family wasn't wealthy, Mandy Tran managed to earn admission to the Chinese University of Hong Kong, one of the most prestigious universities in Hong Kong. That day, the whole family bought a roast chicken to celebrate, but Mandy Tran couldn't bring herself to eat it. She gave most of it to her 2 younger sisters. When she went to college, Mandy Tran studied while working part-time. She attended classes during the day and worked at a coffee shop at night. She saved all the money she earned to help support her parents. To her parents, she was a thoughtful and understanding daughter. To her friends, she was smart and hardworking. To the neighbors, she seemed like a perfect young woman, someone who rarely had conflicts with others. So why was she murdered so brutally? Through the investigation, it was found that Mandy Tran's parents usually returned home after 7 p.m. Her younger sister, Tracy Tran, worked at a bar and didn't come home until early morning. The killer had carefully chosen a time when only Mandy Tran would be home to make his move. Clearly, he knew the family's daily routine very well. 5 days later, on the morning of October 9th, Mandy Tran's parents discovered the suitcase she usually used for work. It was placed on top of their wardrobe. This action by the killer was clearly meant to stage the scene, to make it look like Mandy Tran had left for work. There were no signs of forced entry or a struggle at the scene. Because of that, the family didn't notice anything unusual. This suggested that the killer was likely someone who knew the victim. The police believed the killer had a close relationship with Mandy Tran, so they started looking into the people around her. Very quickly, her current boyfriend became a suspect. Tracy Tran had previously tried to contact him, but he didn't respond. It turned out that Mandy Tran and this boyfriend had only been dating for just over a month. His name was Ho Andrew Ho, 30 years old. He had studied in the UK and was working in sales for an electronics company in Shenzhen. He regularly traveled between Hong Kong and Shenzhen. In mid-September, during a yacht trip, he happened to meet Mandy Tran. When he learned she was a flight attendant, he jokingly said he wanted to experience her service. Coincidentally, a few days later, she had a flight to Beijing, so she invited Ho Andrew Ho to come along. During the trip, their relationship quickly grew closer, and by October 2nd, they officially became a couple. Mandy Tran seemed to really like Ho Andrew Ho. She often expressed her feelings for him on Facebook, calling him her angel, who brought good things into her life. Just as the police were preparing to search for Ho Andrew Ho, he showed up at the station on his own and denied having anything to do with Mandy Tran's death. He said the last time he saw her was on October 1st, 3 days before she took time off work. After that, they continued to keep in touch via a messaging app. Their last conversation was around noon on the day of the incident. Mandy Tran had sent him a photo and asked if she looked pretty. Ho Andrew Ho said her flight schedule indicated she would return to Hong Kong at 10:30 p.m. on the 4th. So at 11:30 that night, he texted her asking if she had gotten home. But after that, Mandy Tran stopped replying. She didn't answer any texts or phone calls. He thought she was just tired and didn't think much of it. As for why he was unreachable, he explained that he had gone camping in the mountains with friends, where there was no phone signal. He only found out about her death when he got back, and his friends told him that the police were looking for him. So as soon as he heard the news, he went straight to the police station to clear things up. Ho Andrew. Ho was very cooperative with the investigation and appeared deeply saddened. He said that although they hadn't been dating long, they really connected. He described her as a kind person who deeply loved her family. Police investigated his whereabouts during those days and confirmed that he was in Shenzhen at the time of the murder. Also, they couldn't find any clear motive for him to commit the crime. Therefore, he was removed from the list of suspects. If the killer wasn't Ho Andrew Ho, then who could it be? Mandy Tran had never had any conflicts with her coworkers. Most of her close friends hadn't seen her after October 3rd. Her family had no reason to harm her either. The apartment complex where she lived had a good security system. After reviewing the security footage, police noticed a suspicious man. At around 1:50 p.m. on the day of the incident, a man entered the building, moving around like he was familiar with the place. Then he was seen pacing in front of Mandy Tran's door. 40 minutes later, when Mandy Tran, in her uniform, was pulling her suitcase to go to work, the man suddenly rushed out, grabbed her by the shoulder, pushed her into the apartment, and slammed the door shut. At 3 p.m., Mandy Tran called her work to ask for the day off. This call was likely made under the man's pressure. At 5:17 p.m., the man left the building in a hurry. After that, Mandy Tran never appeared on any security footage again. When Tracy Tran reviewed the camera footage, she immediately recognized the man. It was Kevin Mack, her sister's ex-boyfriend, whom she had broken up with a year ago. Kevin Mack was 26 years old, a wealthy second-generation heir from Shenzhen. His father ran a shipping company that operated between mainland China and Hong Kong. His family was very well off. When he was 6, Kevin Mack moved to Hong Kong with his parents. At 22, he studied at St. John's Ambulance Academy in Hong Kong and had basic medical knowledge. But he failed the final exam and didn't get a license. After that, he became discouraged and started neglecting himself. His academic performance dropped sharply. After high school, his father wanted him to study abroad, but he insisted on working instead, saying he wanted life experience. As a result, he failed over and over at work. He jumped between jobs, finance firms, real estate agencies, and more. At the time of the incident, he was unemployed. According to his friends, Kevin Mack liked to show off. He often bragged about his dating history. Because his family was rich, he also flaunted his wealth, always dressed in designer brands. Whenever he went out with friends, he would pay the bill. When he ran out of money, he would borrow from them. He also enjoyed playing basketball. Every Thursday, he played at the same court, at the same time. He never missed a session. His relationship with Mandy Tran had started out pretty simply. On a November day, Kevin Mack went to a bar in Lan Kwai Fong to meet up with friends. There, he unexpectedly ran into Mandy Tran, a friend of his. She was there to pick up her sister, Tracy Tran. Immediately, Kevin Mack was drawn to Mandy Tran and took the initiative to strike up a conversation. Soon after, he began pursuing her very passionately, giving her a bouquet of roses every day and appearing very infatuated. Mandy Tran was moved and agreed to be his girlfriend. To everyone else, they seemed like a very happy couple. Kevin Mack didn't just spoil her with expensive gifts, but also often took her on trips. On social media, he would either show off their love or express concern for his girlfriend's hard work. Mandy Tran also bought small gifts for Kevin Mack after their travels. Whenever he wanted to meet her, she agreed. However, this relationship didn't last even a year and ended with a messy breakup. Mandy Tran said she felt like a lifeless shell, cutting off all contact and blocking Kevin Mack on every platform. He, on the other hand, created fake accounts to send her disturbing messages and insult her. This emotional turmoil caused Mandy Tran to fall into a state of depression. She even posted online saying that her ex-boyfriend had threatened her life. Her family was furious when they found out, with her father taking 2 weeks off work to escort her to and from her job to prevent any further harm. Thanks to her family's care, Mandy Tran slowly managed to recover from the psychological trauma caused by her ex-boyfriend. This incident made it clear that Kevin Mack likely had motives for causing harm. However, the police were puzzled as to why he, coming from a wealthy family, would steal Mandy Tran's bank card. Upon reviewing security camera footage, the police found that after leaving her apartment, Kevin Mack casually checked his hair in a mirror and walked to a nearby ATM. After attempting to withdraw money for a while, he left empty-handed, looking visibly upset. The bank's transaction log showed 2 incorrect PIN attempts, suggesting he couldn't access the money. Further investigation into Kevin Mack's call history revealed that within 3 days of the incident, he contacted 3 people. The first person, his basketball teammate, mentioned that Kevin Mack had come to the basketball court on time, but dressed unusually and wore glasses. He excused himself from practice, citing other commitments. The teammate noticed 2 clear red scratches on his neck, which Kevin Mack claimed were from a playful altercation with his girlfriend. The next day, they both took the subway home, but Kevin Mack didn't exit at his usual stop. The second contact was an old middle school friend, whom Kevin Mack called on October 6 to meet up and talk about something important. They bought beers at a convenience store and sat on a bench by the road, where Kevin Mack appeared tense. When his friend jokingly asked if he had killed someone, Kevin Mack didn't respond immediately, but later admitted to having killed Mandy Tran. The friend was shocked and, feeling something was off, stood up to stare at Kevin Mack. After a pause, Kevin Mack confessed and described how he had strangled her and blindfolded her in fear. The third person Kevin Mack contacted was a close friend of many years. On October 7th, he called to meet up and, during the conversation, confessed to having killed Mandy Tran and planned to flee Hong Kong. However, since Kevin Mack often boasted, this friend wasn't entirely convinced. They parted ways without taking it seriously. An hour later, Kevin Mack called again, saying he was about to cross the border and asked the friend not to tell anyone he was leaving. With these revelations, the police now had enough evidence to suspect Kevin Mack as the murderer. They offered a reward of 300,000 Hong Kong dollars for information leading to his capture. As public outrage grew, even his old middle school friend spoke out, urging Kevin Mack to surrender. He said that some mistakes cannot be undone, and avoiding the consequences would change nothing. 3 years later, on April 2nd, 2016, the police received a tip from a concerned father. He had discovered through an online search that his daughter's boyfriend was Kevin Mack, and he reported it to the authorities. 5 days later, the police tracked down Kevin Mack at a hair salon just 6 days before his birthday. He was arrested and, before his capture, had been excitedly planning his birthday party. Kevin Mack later confessed to killing his ex-girlfriend and hiding her body in Hong Kong. The entire story was finally revealed. To the public, Kevin Mack always appeared to be a good man, but in reality, he was only hiding behind a false persona. He frequently boasted to his friends about having won the affection of a high school-educated flight attendant who was obedient and would meet him whenever he wanted. He also had affairs with other women while still in a relationship with Mandy Tran. After more than a year together, their relationship started to crumble. In early 2013, when Kevin Mack picked up Mandy Tran from the airport, he saw her chatting happily with a male colleague. The two seemed close, and Kevin Mack became jealous. He stormed over and yelled at them, using vulgar language. Mandy Tran felt humiliated as their argument escalated in front of a crowd. She was embarrassed, and after calming down, he apologized, explaining that work issues had made him irritable. But ironically, he forgot to delete inappropriate messages with other women, which made Mandy Tran even angrier. She immediately demanded a breakup. Kevin Mack quickly made excuses, claiming that he had no feelings for those women, and they were just acquaintances from before their relationship. Here is the translated passage in American English, keeping the meaning intact and using simple, understandable language. To show his sincerity, he would go to your company every day to apologize. Eventually, the two of them got back together. But after moving in together, Kevin Mack started showing his true colors. He quit his job and spent his days playing video games at home. Whenever Mandy Tran suggested he go back to work, he would make excuses, saying that his family was wealthy and his father was about to pass down all his assets to him, so he didn't need to work. In reality, his father had stopped giving him pocket money a long time ago because he saw that Kevin Mack was wasting his life. But Kevin Mack remained oblivious and even got involved in gambling, continuously borrowing money from Mandy Tran. When he lost at gambling, he would break things and get angry. Within just half a month, he had racked up hundreds of thousands of Hong Kong dollars in debt. In September, when he asked Mandy Tran for more money, she couldn't take it anymore and refused. They had a fierce argument. In his rage, Kevin Mack strangled Mandy Tran and threatened to kill her. Mandy Tran struggled, called the police, and they arrived quickly at the hotel where they were staying and detained Kevin Mack. After investigating the situation, he was taken to court and charged with violating the bail order, a relatively light punishment. This required him to comply with certain conditions for a specific period of time. The incident left Mandy Tran utterly heartbroken, leading to their definitive breakup. However, Kevin Mack was not willing to let go and continued to stalk her. When he found out she had a new boyfriend, he called to ask if they could get back together, but Mandy Tran completely ignored him. He deliberately scheduled a time to meet her on October 4th, knowing that she would be home alone that afternoon. Kevin Mack was aware of her family's schedule, and since Mandy Tran was rather passive, he thought that he could threaten her into agreeing to get back together. That afternoon, he went to the Qianuyan apartment complex, knocked on her door, but she saw him through the peephole and refused to open the door. He then waited out of her line of sight, and when she let her guard down and opened the door, he barged in. At first, he thought everything would go as planned, but Mandy Tran seemed determined not to reconcile. She told him that she had to go to work soon and asked him to leave. Of course, Kevin Mack wasn't going to let this opportunity slip by. Under his threat, Mandy Tran called in sick to work. During their conversation, seeing that there was no chance of reconciliation, Kevin Mack lost his patience and began to get physical. He grabbed the scarf from Mandy Tran's uniform and she panicked, scratching his neck with her nails, leaving 2 deep scratches. By this time, he had completely lost control. He strangled her with all his strength until he realized she had stopped breathing. Afterward, he cleaned up the scene, created a false narrative that Mandy Tran had gone to work, sold her phone, and fled Hong Kong. For the next 3 years, he hid at a relative's house in China, spending lavishly with money sent by his parents. When the money ran out, he looked for jobs in factories that didn't require identification. He even got a new girlfriend and had a son. He thought he could live like this for the rest of his life, but unexpectedly, his new girlfriend's family discovered his true identity. After being caught, Kevin Mack, with a gloomy expression, said that he had considered turning himself in, but was afraid of being convicted. He had never committed a crime before, and he deeply regretted what he had done. He felt guilty toward his own family and Mandy Tran's family. He had been tortured by his conscience all this time, and now he was finally relieved. In 2017, China extradited Kevin Mack back to Hong Kong. Throughout this process, he kept his face covered with his hands, showing regret. 5 years after the incident, in April 2018, Kevin Mack's trial began at the Hong Kong High Court. He was charged with murder, theft, and other crimes. During the trial, he changed his testimony, claiming that he had killed Mandy Tran unintentionally and not on purpose. He told a different story, saying that when he went to see Mandy Tran to ask to get back together, she had willingly agreed to take time off work and offered to cook for him. While she went to the bathroom, he saw a message on her phone from someone named Quinn Ho, which was very affectionate. This made them argue, and during the fight, Mandy Tran mocked his abilities in bed, which made him so angry that he accidentally strangled her to death. Afterward, Kevin Mack tried to resuscitate her with CPR, but it was too late. After fleeing to China, he often thought about doing something drastic because of his guilt, but was afraid of dragging others into it, so he didn't. He always carried a picture of Mandy Tran with him, looking at it late at night until he got a new girlfriend, at which point he burned the photo. Despite repeatedly claiming he loved Mandy Tran and felt guilty toward her family, Kevin Mack's behavior was strange when questioned by the judge. He often slandered Mandy Tran's private life, saying that they had sex shortly after meeting. When asked what he liked about her, he stuttered and barely managed to say, "her body." The forensic experts questioned his testimony, noting that after CPR, bruises should have appeared on the chest of the victim, but Mandy Tran's body showed no signs of this. Instead, there were signs that she had lost control of her bladder and bowels before dying, suggesting that she had experienced strong emotions like pain or fear. Some of Kevin Mack's friends testified in court, and one of them said that Kevin Mack had told him after the crime that he had wanted to kill Mandy Tran for a long time. This indicated that the murder was premeditated. Mandy Tran's mother broke down in tears at the trial, holding up a photo of her daughter. She had to cover her mouth with a tissue, unable to speak. Tracy Tran was furious at Kevin Mack's defense, stating that her sister had wanted to break up for a long time. But Kevin Mack continued to stalk her. She assured the court that her sister would never have agreed to get back together. Although the defense lawyer argued that Kevin Mack had repented and hoped for a lighter sentence, the judge called him cold-blooded, irresponsible, and selfish. The judge also pointed out that Kevin Mack had already admitted to killing Mandy Tran before the trial. The jury, after 7 hours of deliberation, found him guilty of murder and other crimes, sentencing him to life in prison. Upon hearing the verdict, Kevin Mack showed no strong reaction, staring ahead with a blank expression. Tracy Tran cried and stood up. In an interview afterward, she said that the law could only judge so much, but there were still many things that couldn't be fixed. She would never forgive the defendant. Fortunately, her sister was finally exonerated. This case left the public heartbroken and enraged. Mandy Tran was just an ordinary person seeking her own happiness, and she did nothing wrong. The wrongdoer was the one who couldn't let go and was cruel in his obsession. Mandy Tran's story ends with a life sentence for Kevin Mack, but the pain and loss her family endured will last forever. This case serves as a painful reminder of the devastating consequences of possessiveness, jealousy, and selfishness in love. It also warns us about the importance of respecting others' freedom and choices, and the need to speak up and seek help when faced with violence or threats in relationships. Mandy Tran's life was unfairly taken, but her story will always be a lesson to all of us about the value of life, love, and justice. Hopefully, wherever she is now, she has found peace. The video ends here, and we'll meet again in the next one. Goodbye.